I need to tell you something, and I am going to be honest. This is not easy for me to say out loud, even now. Before you hear what I became, you have to know what I was first. Because if I skip that part, none of this will make sense to you. My name, well, I will call myself Yusuf here, because my real name still matters to people who could be hurt by it. I was born in Jeddah in the year 1989. My father worked for the government his whole life, a quiet, serious man who prayed like it was the only solid thing in the world. My mother, she wore her covering with pride, not because someone forced her, but because it was who she was, deep down, no question about it. I grew up inside a house where faith was not something you thought about on Fridays only. It was in the walls. It was in the way we ate, the way we spoke, the way we slept and woke. By the time I was 9, I could recite long parts of the Quran from memory. I was not a boy who was searching for meaning. I already had meaning. I was full, not empty. I knew exactly who I was and what I believed, and I knew, without a doubt, who the enemy of that belief was supposed to be. I did not know, back then, that one day the enemy would turn out to be me. Let me say a number out loud that some people do not want spoken. There are now more than 200,000 people inside this country who have quietly chosen to follow Jesus, not in buildings with crosses on top. There are no such buildings here, not with Bibles sitting on a shelf in the living room, because owning one can be enough to end your freedom. They pray with the bathroom tap running so the sound covers their voice. They meet in cars parked in the dark, far from streetlights. They talk in phone groups with no real names, only short words that mean nothing to anyone watching, messages that disappear as soon as they are read. 200,000 people, waking up every single day, carrying something that could take away their job, their family, maybe their life. I know this because I am one of them now. And I know this even more clearly because before I was one of them, I was the kind of man they used to be afraid of. I worked for 6 years in a government role that I am not going to describe in too much detail for my own safety and for the safety of people I still love. What I can say is this. Part of my job was to sit across a table from people and ask them questions they did not want to answer. Part of my job was to write reports that changed lives. I was not someone standing on the side, looking away. I was in the middle of it. And for a long time, I believed, truly believed, that what I did was good work, necessary work, even sacred in some strange way. The thing that cracked all of that open for me did not come as some big dramatic sign from the sky. It came in a small meeting room, on an ordinary afternoon, nothing special about the lighting or the weather that day. A senior officer was giving a report about a group that had been found in a house somewhere out east, around 20 people meeting quietly in secret. When the officers went inside, these people were not armed. They were not making plans against anyone. They were kneeling, praying to Jesus. The officer describing it was angry, almost disgusted when he talked about them. But one small detail stuck to me, and it followed me home that night, and it did not let me sleep. When those people were questioned, one by one, not a single one of them denied what they believed. Not the old ones, not the young ones. Every one of them said something close to the same thing. They said they knew this Jesus was real because he had come to them, not through a book someone gave them. Not because a foreigner had talked to them on the street. He came to them personally, in dreams, at night, while they slept. One man in that group said his young son had been very sick, close to death. In his fear, alone at night, he had prayed to Jesus, of all people, not knowing why. By the next morning, the boy was well again, fully well. The officer in charge called these people confused. Dangerous, he said. I did not say anything out loud. But in the car driving home that night, one question kept turning over and over in my head, and I could not put it down. What would make a man in this country, knowing everything he stood to lose, pray to someone other than Allah, not out of weakness, not out of confusion, something else, something strong enough that the cost did not matter anymore? That question sat with me for weeks. It sat with me while I ate, while I worked, while I tried to pray my own prayers, which suddenly felt, I do not know, thinner than before, lighter than before, like something was missing that I could not name. Some months after that, I met a man I will call Tariq. We were not close. We worked in the same building, passed each other in the hallway, said the small polite things people say to coworkers, nothing more than that. One evening I came back to the office after everyone had gone home because I had forgotten some papers on my desk. The lights were mostly off. I thought the building was empty. Then I heard something from the far corner, low, almost nothing. I looked over and saw Tarek sitting at his desk, his head down, his shoulders shaking. He did not hear me come in, and in a voice so quiet I almost thought I imagined it, he was saying a name, the name of Jesus. Everything in me, 6 years of training, said report this right now. That was the reflex. That was supposed to be automatic, but my feet did not move. I stood there in the doorway, and something held me still, something I had never felt before, like a hand pressing gently but firmly against my chest. I turned around quietly and walked back out into the hallway. I stood there a long time, just breathing. The next morning, Tarek came to my desk. He looked tired in a way that was more than just tired, the way a person looks after they have survived something difficult in the night. He looked at me for a long moment and then said, quietly, "You were there yesterday." Not really a question, more like he already knew. I nodded. He closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, he asked me straight, "Are you going to report me?" I sat with that question longer than I expected to. Then I said no. I still remember his face in that moment. It was not simple relief. It was something deeper than that, something like a man putting down a heavy bag he had been carrying so long he had almost forgotten it was there. Then he asked me something I was not ready for. He asked, "Have you ever had a dream that felt more real than being awake? Where someone came to you and something happened inside your chest that you had never felt before?" I did not answer right away, because 3 weeks before that day, I had a dream I had been trying very hard to forget. In the dream, I was standing alone in the desert at night. The stars were huge, closer than they should be. I felt afraid, though I could not tell you of what exactly. Then a man began walking toward me out of the dark. He was wearing white. His face was calm, very calm, in a way that did not match the fear I was feeling. He did not say anything at first. He only looked at me. And when he looked at me, something moved through my chest, like a current passing through, gentle but impossible to stop, like a hand reaching in and touching something that had never been touched before. Then he said my name, just Yusuf. The way I think a father says the name of a son who has been lost for a long time and is finally found. I woke up with my face wet with tears. I had not cried since I was a small boy, not once, not in years. I sat there in the dark of my room and I pushed the feeling down hard. I told myself it was only a dream, just a dream, nothing more. I told myself that more than once. When Tarek asked me that question, the dream came rushing back with so much force that I had to grip the edge of my desk just to steady myself. "So yes," I said quietly, "I have had a dream like that." He sat down slowly in the chair next to mine and leaned in close, speaking barely above a whisper. He told me he came to me 2 years ago in a dream just like that. He told me his name. He told me he died for me. I did not understand what that meant, not really, not yet. I told him I spent months trying to make myself forget it. More prayer, more fasting, everything I knew how to do. And every time I thought I had buried it, he said I would feel it again. Not always in a dream, sometimes just present, like someone standing quietly in the room with me. He paused there, then he said, "I found a Bible online late one night. I read it in secret. I did not understand most of it. But when I got to the parts about him, what he said, what he did, I recognized his voice from the dream, and something in me just stopped fighting." He looked at me a long time after that. Then he said, "I know what the law says here. I know exactly what it means for me. But Yusuf, I cannot pretend I did not meet him. I have tried. I really have tried. I cannot do it anymore. I want to be honest with you. I did not become a believer that day. It took many more months, many long nights arguing with myself, going back and forth, telling myself one thing in the morning and doubting it by night. I kept reading words that kept doing something to me that I had not asked for and did not fully want. More dreams came, quieter than the first one, but still there. And then one night, alone in my car, parked far from the city lights, I said something out loud into the silence. I said, "If you are real, show me." What happened after that, I do not really have the right words for, even now. I can only tell you that after that night, I was not the same person I had been before it. Something in me that had been locked shut for a long time came open, and what came through that opening was warm, not confusing, not unclear. It was like walking out of a cold room into sunlight all at once. The next morning, I went to Tariq and told him I needed to talk. He took me carefully, quietly to a small group, about 10 people, meeting at night, in an apartment where the neighbors mostly kept to themselves. They sat together on the floor in a circle, no books out in the open, because carrying a Bible here is dangerous. Some of them had memorized long parts of scripture in Arabic and spoke it from memory while the rest listened. They prayed in voices so quiet I almost could not hear them over the silence in the room. I had expected to feel afraid. Instead, I felt that same warmth I had felt in the desert dream. That same presence, invisible but somehow undeniable, like someone standing there with us, watching over the room. An older man in the group, with gray in his beard, looked at me across the circle and smiled gently. He said, "He brought you here. He always brings the ones he wants." I cried that night, for the first time as a grown man, and not one person there seemed surprised by it. Several of them told me quietly that they had done the exact same thing the first time they felt it too. Over the years after that, I began to understand how big this really was all around me. This is not something organized from outside the country. No one is running a program here. Nobody designed it. It is growing on its own from the inside, and it keeps growing because of the same small handful of things told over and over in hundreds of separate stories that do not connect to each other in any normal way. Dreams, healing. Quiet moments of desperation where a person calls out for help and finds that something, someone, actually answers. I have talked to people in Jeddah, in Riyadh, in Medina, even rich families and families with almost nothing, men who had memorized the whole Quran, who had made the pilgrimage more than once in their lives. And every one of them has a story that starts the same way. Something happened to them that they could not explain. Something broke through a wall they did not even know they had built. And when they reached out for an answer, they found him there. The dreams are the part that still stops me, even after all this time. I have heard so many stories now, from people who have never met each other, who live far apart, of a man in white who came to them and told them his name was Jesus, who looked at them in a way that broke something open inside them, that I do not feel surprised by the stories anymore. What still catches me is how much they are alike. The same eyes, described by strangers who never spoke to one another. The same feeling in the chest, the same warmth, the same sense of being fully known and fully wanted at the same time. You cannot fake something like that across a whole country. You cannot explain it away as coincidence. I have to tell you about the pressure too, because without it, this story is not complete. The authorities have not stopped looking, not for one day. People I came to care about deeply were taken in for questioning. Some were held for weeks at a time. Some lost their jobs overnight. Some were cut off completely by their own families. If you did not grow up in this culture, it is hard to explain what that really means. Your family here is the whole structure of your life. To have your own father look at you and say you are dead to him now, that is a kind of pain that does not really have an equal anywhere else. I sat with people who came to us shaking, not from cold, after their own mothers told them they wished they had never been born. People who were thrown out of their homes with nothing, not even a change of clothes. We would sit with them, pray quietly with them, hold their hands, and just wait. After some time, the shaking would slow down. A kind of quiet would settle over their faces that I cannot explain any other way except the way they explained it themselves. They would say, "He is still here. I can still feel him with me." That is the part the authorities cannot reach, no matter how hard they try. They can take away freedom. They can take away family. They can take safety and comfort and every material thing a person has, but they cannot go inside a person and remove what is living there. I was told once about a man who was questioned for 11 days straight. They kept telling him, "Just say the words, deny this Jesus, say it out loud, and you can go home tonight." He told them he could not do it, not because he wanted to be brave or make a point. He said it would be like denying the sun exists while standing right in its light. You cannot say something is false when you have felt it yourself, with your own hands, in your own chest. They finally let him go. When he came back to our group, the first thing he said was, he was in that room with me every single day. There is a woman I will call Amal, because her real name could put her in danger even now. She was discovered because her young daughter, only 16, said something to the wrong person, not out of any bad intention, just because she was young and did not understand the weight of what she was carrying. Within days, everything in Amal's life fell apart around her. Her husband was furious. Her extended family gathered to confront her. In one single week, she lost almost everything the world usually uses to measure a person's life. When I saw her again after she was released, she looked thinner, tired in a way that goes past simple tiredness, past sleep even. But she was not broken. She sat with us and said, when they were all shouting at me, my husband, my family, the men across the table, I kept going back to a quiet place inside myself, like a small room in my chest where none of them could follow me in. It was loud outside, but it was so quiet in there, and he was in there with me the whole time. I have heard a lot of talk about peace over the years, from all kinds of teachers and speakers in many places. But the peace I have watched settle over someone like Amal, that is not the kind of peace that comes easy from a comfortable life. That is the peace that comes after surviving something that should have destroyed you and finding, somehow, that you are still standing there afterward. I want to tell you about one more person before I finish. I will call him Faisal. He was 23 when I met him, the grandson of a well-known religious teacher, his whole future already planned out by his family, down to small details. One night, walking home from evening prayers, he passed an old man sitting sick in a doorway. Something pulled him toward the man, though he could not explain why, even to himself. He sat down beside him. The old man looked at him and asked, "Are you a believer in Jesus?" Faisal was shocked. "Of course not," he said. The old man smiled and said, "You will be." Then he said something specific about Faisal's own life, something private, something a stranger had no way of knowing. Faisal walked away quickly after that, frightened, his heart pounding. That same night, the man in white came to him in a dream, just as he had come to so many others. Faisal fought it for almost 3 months. He washed himself carefully after each dream, said his prayers over and over, terrified of what was happening to him. He held even tighter to everything he had been raised to believe. But the presence did not go away. It followed him into the daytime too, a warmth that would not lift. A quiet voice, not loud or dramatic, just steady, saying his name, saying come. One night alone in his room, he finally gave in. He knelt down on the floor and said out loud, "I do not know how to do this. I do not know anything about this. But if you are real, I am yours." He told me later what happened after that. A warmth started in the middle of his chest and moved slowly through his whole body, like a tide coming in over sand. He could not move for a long time. He was not afraid, he said. He felt, in his own words, completely known and completely loved, both at once, as if someone had been quietly watching over his whole life and had just been waiting for him to finally look back. Faisal eventually found a group, the way most people here find one careful, trusted introduction at a time, one name passed along only after weeks of quiet watching. He joined a group of about 15 people. He learned, he grew, and then something none of us expected began to happen. He started praying for people outside the group, quietly, carefully, never pushing. When he heard someone he knew was sick, he would find a gentle way to ask if he could pray for them. Some said no, some said yes, without really expecting much to come of it. And again, something did happen. A child's fever, gone by the next morning. A grown man's back pain, the kind that had outlasted years of doctors, gone the same day Faisal prayed with a hand on his shoulder, sitting quietly in a parked car. I was there for one of these moments myself. A man came to a gathering in a wheelchair, his legs damaged badly in an accident more than a year before. Several of us prayed over him, one after another. Eventually most of the group stopped. Faisal kept going, quiet on his knees, holding the man's feet gently, speaking in a voice almost too soft to hear at all. After maybe 20 minutes, the man's legs began to tremble. Then slowly he stood up. He took one step, then another. The whole room went completely still. Nobody moved for a moment. Then someone started to cry, and then everyone was crying, and nobody cared anymore about how much noise we were making. Our group grew after that. When it grew too large to be safe, we divided it into smaller groups. Those smaller groups grew too and divided again. I know now of quiet networks, careful and real, reaching across several cities. Groups where one person serves as a kind of teacher, someone who has memorized scripture and passes it along slowly, patiently. Groups where they have nothing written down at all, where they say what they remember out loud in the dark, because carrying anything physical is too much of a risk. I know of a group of women who meet together while doing laundry. To anyone watching from outside, it looks completely ordinary, just women talking while they work. But underneath that, they are praying together, sharing their fears, crying together, building each other back up week after week. I know of university students too, the generation that will decide what this country looks like 30 years from now, meeting quietly, carefully, finding in this Jesus they met in secret the most real thing they have ever touched in their whole lives. The government has shut down some of these groups. People have been imprisoned. Some foreign workers were sent out of the country. The danger here is not something I am making bigger than it is. But every time one group is shut down, it seems like two more have already started somewhere else. Every time someone is made an example of publicly, their story seems to reach people who had not been asking any questions before, and now, quietly, they are. I left in the spring of 2023. I left because my involvement had become known to the wrong people. Someone still working inside warned me that I was being watched closely, and I only had a few hours to decide what to do. I took almost nothing with me. I left people I loved behind. I left my family. I left the only country I had ever lived in, the only place I had ever called home. I am safe now, though I will not say exactly where. I am still in careful contact with people back home, through coded messages, small words that mean something only to us. And what they tell me again and again is that things are not shrinking, they are growing. The stories keep multiplying, and the presence they describe does not get weaker under pressure. If anything, they tell me, it is in the moments of greatest danger that they feel him most clearly of all. Someone sent me a message not long ago. I will share part of what they said, changed just enough to keep them safe. They wrote they came again this week. There was real fear in the room, but when we gathered anyway, something so strong came over the place that people were falling to the floor, not from terror, but from something coming in, something good. 3 people gave their lives to him that night. While we were afraid, he was already moving. This is the part I want you to sit with. This is the thing that no law, no prison cell, no family rejection has been able to stop. You can shut down a meeting. You can take a book away at the border. You can make a person afraid of what might happen next. But you cannot reach inside a person and take out what has already taken root there. My name is Yusuf. I used to be the kind of man they were afraid of. Now I tell their story quietly, carefully, because right now they cannot tell it themselves. Not yet, not safely. If anyone reading this is still there, still carrying this in silence, I want you to know you are not alone in it. What you found is real. The one who came to you in that dream, who healed your child, who healed your own body, who found you in your worst moment and did not leave, he is real, and he is not going to stop. Something is happening right now, quietly, in one of the hardest places on earth to be a believer. No big buildings, no announcements, no famous names attached to it. Just one person after another, in a dark room, in a parked car, with the water running in a bathroom sink, finding him there, and finding out that he is exactly as real as the ones before them said he was.